Will there be Christmas in Bethlehem this year? With the war in Israel still raging, hardly anything is the same as it once was. While so many of us are living life as usual, buying presents, decorating our homes, and baking cookies, things in Israel look quite different. And in this video, I want to show you an interview I did recently with Itai Schimmel, a man living in Israel who shares insights like what the situation is like in Israel right now. What are some of the cherished Christmas traditions in Israel that may have to be set aside this year? How has the war had an impact on even those in Israel who live nowhere near Gaza? And whether or not Christmas will be celebrated in Bethlehem, a city in Palestinian territory that is uniquely affected by the turmoil in Israel right now. Let's watch. Well, here I am today with my friend Itai from Artza. It is so good to see you, Itai. I think it's been about a year since we've been together. How are you doing these days?
It's great to see you as well. Yeah, it's been a year. Time goes by really, really fast. But I'm doing well, thank God. The family as well, and it's great to speak to you.
Yeah, good to speak to you too. And, I think when we talked last year, the war had just begun. Maybe we were a month or so after the events in October. And I know you're in the military, you have to serve in that way. So what has it been like over the past year being in Israel and just experiencing the things you've had to experience?
Yeah, this time last year when we spoke, I believe I was called back into reserve duty, which is
Yeah.
not something I thought I would be doing at that time. It's been an incredibly tough year. It's been just over a year. Israel's still in the thick of the war. We're now in a war as well with Hezbollah in Lebanon, and then obviously Iran and various other fronts as well. So it's been very difficult. It's been a real roller coaster of emotions as well. There's over 100 hostages who are still being kept captive by Hamas in Gaza. So it feels like the whole country, the whole nation is kind of like stuck. And as long as we have 100 hostages still in Gaza, no one can really feel like they're back to their normal lives. So
Yeah.
it's been a tough year. It's been a tough year for everyone. But everyone's going through their, you know, everyone's going through a very tough year.
When we see this from over here in America, and I'm sure others in different parts of the world, what we see is the fighting, we see the, machines and the guns and all the things like that. But what we don't see a lot of is what it's like to be somebody living in Israel and trying to go through your normal day-to-day life in the midst of all of this. And I know what it's like when, fighting is in one place and you're not necessarily in the war zone every day, but what is it like even to just be in the midst of a nation at war right now?
It,
How has
it's a
that
it's a good
affected you
question.
all?
It's a good question. You have to remember Israel is just a tiny country. And you've been here, you know what it's like here. Everyone kind of feels very connected. So, when something sad or terrible happens to someone, it kind of affects a much wider group of people as well. So I think after a couple of months, people go in reserve duty, they leave reserve duty, they kind of go back to their lives, they go back to work, and it somewhat feels normal. But then something will happen in the news, and it will kind of pull you right back into
Hmm.
the reality of, hey, we're still at war, it's still a country at war. And then you might go back into like 2 weeks of, can feel quite anxious, and it can be like very, very tough and very, very difficult. And then you'll kind of go back into the swing again of like trying to get back a normal life, back at work, back with your family, see friends, and then something else will happen and it'll kind of like really pull you back. So yes, the country is still continuing, and I know what people see abroad is just like war and destruction and really horrible, horrific scenes. But at the same time, Israel is continuing. So it's kind of this really strange, weird, uh, um, I don't know, like dance between like trying to continue with your life, but also you're still a country at war. You still have friends who are probably serving reserve duty or in the army. You have friends who are losing people that they love. So it's tough. It's really a roller coaster. You kind of just like up and down and up and down. Um, but again, trying to go on and trying to, as best as you can, um, you know, continue with your lives because you have to. We've been doing this already for 14 months, and it's probably going to continue for a while still. And just for your own sanity, I think you have to try and find some normality within the madness. So it's
Yeah.
really wild.
So right now we're heading into Christmas, and we're heading into this time that I know is usually such a beautiful and holy time in Israel. How do you prepare for that? How do you kind of celebrate in the midst of everything going on around you? And how do you celebrate Christmas in Israel?
But I think you need to find reason to celebrate as well, which is what I feel. I think the reason why there are soldiers putting their lives on the line, and the reason why people are sacrificing so much is so that the rest of the people and the rest of the country can get on with their lives. That's why people are working so hard and fighting so hard, is so that they're there to protect the civilian people and to protect them so that they can continue. And because there is also so much sadness and so much destruction and a lot of stress, when there are these small moments to celebrate, or when there is a festival, or something like Christmas, which is so full of joy and something which is usually so comforting and so beautiful and is full of faith, I think it's very important to actually kind of try and fully embrace it and really find reason to celebrate and find those special and beautiful moments inside. Of course, Israel is, tourism is usually booming at this time of year. Israel summer, everyone enjoys Israel in the summer and it's beautiful. But then, of course, the Christmas story and the birth of Jesus and all the places where he lived, that all happened here in Israel. So at this time of year, Bethlehem would have almost 200,000 visitors flying in to Israel just to go visit Bethlehem, and then they go up to Nazareth. This year, of course, there's going to be almost none of that. It's a very different type of Christmas. But again, Christmas will still be celebrated, and we can talk about how it's going to be celebrated in the different cities and what there is still to see. And we would love to share that with everyone.
Yeah, and so I think people would really be interested to know that. Like, what is Christmas like in Israel? I'm sure it's a bit different than American Christmas in some ways. I mean, you have all of these holy places where these events happened. And so what are some of the special things you think of when you think of celebrating Christmas in Israel?
Well, firstly, it's beautiful here. It really is beautiful here. It's very, very different, obviously. It's not that snowy, cold, freezing cold Christmas, which, people are usually more used to and seeing. If people have seen Bethlehem, or if they've gone to Bethlehem or seen photos, it's, old kind of Jerusalemish stone, and it's kind of just outside Jerusalem where it starts to get towards be a bit of desert. So it looks very different, but it's incredibly, incredibly special time of year. At the end of the day, Christmas, if you look past the markets and Santa Claus and all the kind of the fanfare, which in the commercialized part of it, at the end of the day, you're really celebrating the birth of Jesus. And that happened here in Israel, in the land of the Bible, and happened in Bethlehem. And there really isn't much disputing that. So to be able to actually celebrate this time of year in the place of Jesus' birth is a pretty incredible opportunity for anyone who's able to do so. It's really special. So just that on its own is an incredible, that's very powerful. Then, of course, it's also, there's Christmas markets. There's a 16-meter Christmas tree up in Manager Square there. There's all the hearty, joyful moments of Christmas as well, which comes around. The Christmas markets is filled with there's a lot of wood craftsmen in Bethlehem. That's kind of what they're known for. It's their olive wood craftsmen. So you kind of visit their shops, and they're so hospitable, and they love welcoming people inside their shops and sharing their stories and sharing their crafts and sharing their gifts. There's ceremonies, and there's parades, and there's special foods. It's beautiful. It's a very, very, very special time of year. It really is. And Bethlehem, for those who know, there's Christians and there's Muslims that live there as well. And kind of it's at Christmas, it's kind of like when the Christians kind of, I guess, really show all the beauty of their faith there as well. And it's something really special.
Now, before we move on, if you have ever wanted to feel close to the Holy Land but couldn't actually make the journey, Artza Box is an amazing way to do that. Each quarter, they release a new themed box that takes you through a different region or experience in Israel. They contain food, art, and other beautiful products that teach you about the culture and the land. And the best part is, all of these products come from local vendors in Israel, which, as you may know, have been devastated by the ongoing war in Israel and the drop in tourism. So this is an amazing way to support those being affected by this war. And in this month's box, there's a really beautiful item called an Ahava stone that is created by a couple who survived the Nova Festival attacks in Israel last year. And if you're not familiar with it, Ahava is the word in Hebrew for love. So purchasing one of these boxes not only helps you to connect with the Holy Land, it also blesses those who've been directly affected by the war. So if you'd like to purchase an Artza box, you'll find a link below. And if you type in the promo code Brandon20, you'll get an extra 20% discount. Yeah, so because Bethlehem is in a Palestinian area, are people able to access that at Christmas this year as much as in the past? Is it off limits? How does that work?
I don't believe it's off limits. In general, Jewish people aren't really able to go visit there any time of year at all, because it's considered to be a bit more of a dangerous place for them to visit.
Sure.
However, Christians who come and they visit Israel, they're completely, the roads and everything is completely open for them to go visit it. And I believe, I'm not sure entirely, because I don't know what the restrictions are given the war. Everything's a bit different this year. I don't know how open everything is to allow tourists inside. I do think that they are allowed inside, but I'm not entirely sure. But it will definitely be a much quieter Christmas, and I feel very, very bad for so many of the businesses. The main business economy of Bethlehem is tourism.
Yeah.
Now you have to remember that they went through a year and a half of COVID where there was absolutely no tourism, and they went through about 2 Christmases then, and then they had 1 year where it's kind of getting back to normal, and now we've gone back into this war where it's going to be the second Christmas of the war where there's going to be no tourists. And for an entire city who their main economy comes from tourism, to go through almost 4 Christmases without any businesses, it's really devastating. It's really sad. And it's not just Bethlehem, it's also Nazareth, and it's all over the country as well. It's really difficult for them.
I think that's a really sobering thing for a lot of us, because it's easy to see how the war itself and the violence affects people, but to think also just about how economically and in other ways that this impacts the people of Israel. I mean, tourism is such a big piece of it. And just to think, you're right, 4 years, if you include COVID, without that. So then I know a lot of people are asking the question, how can then I help? How can I be a part of supporting people who are in Israel and the things that they're going through? I can't travel there. I can't necessarily do that, but I want to help. What does that look like? And I know you guys have your whole business is kind of founded off of that, isn't it?
Yeah, that was totally why we founded the business. We founded Artza 4.5 years ago. It was kind of just around the start of COVID when we noticed there probably wouldn't be any tourists in Israel for the first year. And we understood the economic impact that had on all the businesses as well, that they were just going to have no business for an entire year. And we also understood how important it is to actually, for people to come and visit Israel and kind of really experience the land where the stories of the Bible happened. So that's when we created Artza. And Artza, for those who don't know, we created a subscription box which takes you on a journey through the stories of the Bible, through the land of the Bible. And the idea is every 3 months we'll send you a different themed gift box. And that box will be filled with crafts and foods and stories and inspiring content and all these different gifts made by small businesses, artisans, and farmers and charities within different areas in Israel. And then through every single box, you not only get to experience a different place or region in Israel, but you're also directly supporting 8 small businesses and charities. And we've been doing that now for 4.5 years. I believe this Christmas is going to be our 20th box that we've sent.
Oh, wow.
We've helped support hundreds and hundreds of families and hundreds of businesses. Some of these businesses, they cry on the phone to us, really. They when we go to visit their factories, they're crying to us and they're telling us that we've allowed their business to stay open for another 6 months, or because of them, they're able to feed another 7 families of their employees. And now that they send their products to America, they suddenly have this whole ecosystem where people in America are now reaching out to them to order more of their products, and they've kind of really given them a bit of a lifeline. But when we set up Artza 4.5 years ago, the idea was kind of help people during COVID, but then it kind of took on this whole life of its own, and we understood what a beautiful community we've built here. But now with the war, where it seems even more extreme. It's kind of like the mission behind what we're trying to do is even more important than it's ever been. So it's just been, it's kind of for me and for everyone at Artza, it's just a real privilege to be able to do what it is that we're doing. And we're very excited to continue doing it. And we have a beautiful Christmas box prepared. And we're kind of really excited to bring that feeling of Israel and Christmas is in Israel and the time and the birthplace of Jesus and try and put it inside this box and send it to people's homes.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about that. Can you tell us a little bit about this particular box and the artisans who you're featuring and supporting through that, and what people would get who receive the box that's coming out now?
Yeah, of course. So since the war started, we've also kind of pivoted the direction in which on who we work with, and we're trying to work with people who are really most affected by the war, and whether that's families or businesses who were in the October 7th massacre in last year of 2023, and whether it's survivors from there or whether it's organizations who members of their businesses were murdered. So we try and always work with them in our boxes as well and kind of highlight their stories. And then we also try and work with communities who were in the Gaza border town communities from the October 7th massacre. And then obviously all the families and businesses which have been evacuated from northern Israel, which is on the border of Lebanon, who for the past 14 months haven't been able to return to their homes because there's just missiles falling the entire time. So we're always trying to work with all these people, and then we're also trying to work with organizations that work with Jews and Christians together because we think, there's a lot of everyone focuses on the differences, and we kind of think there's so much shared value and there's so much beauty, and instead of all the news and everything you see just trying to show the differences, we kind of want to show that there is people who living side by side in peace, and there are people who are working together with a lot of respect. So that's kind of who it is that we're working with. But in our Christmas books this year, we have. Do you want me to go through each product, or kind of just highlight a couple or the stories?
Highlight some of your favorites for us. What do you think people will really love this time?
Sure. We're going to start with some food because food's always amazing, and it's always
Yeah.
winter time. And around winter time, we always want to kind of do something which is heartwarming and sweet, and something which is nice for like a cozy Christmas night. So there is a farmer in northern Israel who he is a third generation farmer. His grandfather set up the farm, and they create these incredible different spice blends of all these different herbs which are all locally grown in the Galilee. And we asked him whether he can come up with some kind of fruity tea infusion, something just like, on a cold winter night, you just want to kind of hold it in your hands and drink it. It's really delicious. So using Israeli fruits, he kind of uses a lot of pomegranates, and he also uses a lot of pineapple and apples and cranberries, and it's kind of created this delicious tea infusion, which is like really reminds you of winter and is really delicious.
Nice.
We have a mosaic building set because obviously there's a lot of archaeology here in Israel, so we thought it'd be important to have something which kind of connects it to the mosaics. So we have this set where you can kind of build the Star of David out of stones which are carved here in Israel, and it's kind of the entire kit with the stones and teaching you how to use it and how to make everything there as well.
That's cool.
And one of my other favorites, this I also like just because I really love the story. So this is a couple, they're 27, 28 years old, and they were at the Nova Music Festival on October 7th, which is where the attack happened, and that was where the massacre happened in 2023. And they went with a lot of friends. A lot of their friends were very sadly murdered on that day, and they, by some miracle, survived. And they, a few weeks earlier, had started a business where they take Jerusalem stone. People know there's like a very special stone which is used all over Jerusalem, and all the buildings and everything is used using the stone. And they take Jerusalem stones and they engrave into it different phrases in Hebrew and English, which kind of is meant to inspire you, or you can kind of have it around your home and you can kind of have a look at it, and it's meant to bring some light into your day. And for us, what they thought was appropriate, given the tough year that it's been, and also given their experiences, is they wanted to write. So here's the Jerusalem stone. It comes in this beautiful box inside, and it says in Hebrew, it says "B'ktzeh ha'or yesh od or," which means at the edge of the light, there's always going to be more light. So like when times are really difficult, when times are really tough, there's always something good ahead, and you should kind of really, you shouldn't give up, and you should really try and fight forward and kind of aim for the light and aim for the goodness, and also with faith in God, obviously, then you can reach there. Which we thought was really beautiful. Firstly, it's Jerusalem stone, and having a piece of Jerusalem stone in your hand, we think is really special.
Yeah.
And then their story, I think, is it's very inspiring. And when we placed the order with them, they they had like this 3 year plan of where they wanted their business to reach. And because we placed the order, we literally we kind of our order was big enough to jump forward their business plan 3 years. So where they thought they were going to be in 2027, they're already there now because of us. They were able to afford to buy all the machinery which they needed, so they didn't have to outsource all of the equipment and all of the work. And now they have their own factory. So it's just really beautiful. It's just such a heartwarming story of how we came about these people and how we got the products as well. So that's just some of the products, and we're very excited. They're all very meaningful. They all have beautiful stories behind them, and we share those stories. And we just think it's a really special box. I'm not going to show everything because I don't want to ruin the surprise for people.
No, that's great. I mean, those are amazing. And I especially love that last one. I think when you know who this product is connected with and what their story is and how, this is such a blessing to them in this time, even just to receive this box, right? You could receive this box and think it's just a bunch of really cool things I'm getting from Israel, or you could realize that you're part of something even bigger than that and you're helping people directly through these boxes. I love that. So, for those of you who are listening right now, I just want to encourage you. We've received Artza boxes for the past few years and love every single one of them. And if you're interested in getting an Artza box and subscribing, we have a special link down in the description that'll give you a special discount. You can only get through us here on this channel, but it will give you a percentage off of your Artza box, and you'll be able to support the people that Artza is supporting through their business and get all of these things that Itai has just shown you and even more that's going to be in this really amazing Christmas box that's coming out. I'm really excited about it.